Welcome back. So now that we understand which data class we want to use for our database, for basically how the table is going to look like in our database, now let's set up the DAO. So the entity class will be used to create the DAO class, providing the methods needed for the CRUD operations. Okay, within the app, we will perform the following. We will insert a wish using the insert method or the add insert method, then fetch all wishes using the add query method, update a wish using the add update method, and then deleting a wish using the add delete method. And if we want to fetch a single wish, we're going to use the add query method again. So the add query method is used once to get all the wishes, and that's going to be on the home screen where we want, or the home view where we want to see all the wishes that we have in our database. But then when we click into one particular wish, we need to query that particular wish by its ID so that we can load its data and display it directly on our detail screen, the edit, update view, detail view screen. So how do we do that? Well, we are going to set up a DAO like we can see here. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new file, and I'm going to put that into our data folder here. So let's go ahead and create a new class, or actually file. This one will be, well, it's actually an abstract class, so we can just use class here as well. This one will be the DAO. And call it wish DAO because wish is the structure or like the data class that we're going to use. So the DAO is going to be specific for that wish data class. So it's common practice to do it this way. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use an abstract keyword here for our DAO. What is an abstract class? An abstract class is a class. An abstract class is a class that has methods that don't need an implementation. So basically, that means that we set up methods, but those methods don't have a body. They don't have anything that they will actually execute. So what that means in our case is we just go ahead and give this abstract class, we added the DAO keyword here, saying, hey, this is a DAO. Coming from Android Room, and then we can set up functions. So we can set up an abstract function that will be called add a wish, that will take a wish from us and doesn't need the body. So it doesn't need this piece here with the curly brackets. You see, I even get an error because the abstract keyword is basically saying, hey, you don't need to implement anything here. You actually don't even have to, well, you can't even do that. You mustn't do that. So it's basically saying, hey, whoever wants to use the add a wish method needs to then actually do the implementation. Okay, the actual what should happen, so to speak. So now because we're inside of this DAO, we also need to say which of the key operations this add a wish should do. Now this add a wish needs to have the insert keyword here. So we're basically saying, hey, this is the function that will take care of inserting something into our database. So there is also something we can add here called onConflict. This will basically just give us a strategy option. So onConflict strategy dot, and here we can say what should happen if we try to add a wish where a wish already exists. So for example, for the same ID, we try to add another wish or something like that, if that ever were to happen, but usually it shouldn't because of the structure of our database. But if that happens, you can directly say what strategy you want to use. Do you want to abort the insertion, the creation of that wish, or adding that wish? Do you want to ignore the conflict, replace the existing item, and so forth? I'm just going to use the ignore strategy here. So I'm just going to say, hey, all right, whatever. Just keep going. So that will be for our insert. Now it's also common practice to not just call this wish a wish, because now the wish is actually a wish entity. Okay, so it's a better practice to call this wish entity, because our wish, if we look at it, is an entity, okay? Or uses the at entity annotation. So that's our first entry. Then we're going to have the query, which we need to define what we want to query. So let's import the query here, and this will be an abstract function called getAllWishes. Now this function will return something called a flow, which will be a list of wishes. So let's import the flow class from coroutines, JetBrains, here, this one here. And we're going to go over that in a second. So let's first of all do the query here. So a query is basically where you define what you want to load from the database. So what information do you want to get? So there is this keyword called select, and then you use star from, and then you say which table you want to use. And here you need to use the apostrophes, like these little guys here, wish table, for example, which we want to get our information from. So what does this thing do? Well, let me add a comment here to give you a better idea. Loads all wishes from the wish table. That means that this query is going to select star, which means all, the star just means all, from a given table. So we're just saying, hey, give me all the items that you have inside of this table and return them. And that's what this flow will do for us. It will return a list of wishes. All right. So let's look at the explanation that we have for flow from the book, which is basically for the query operations, they use the flow reactive stream, which is like live data. It is part of Kotlin's coroutines library and is designed to provide a simple and efficient way to handle asynchronous data streams in a reactive way. It works well with room to fetch and emit updates during data manipulation. All right, so here we have our DAO. So far we have had this part here. Now let's add the update, delete, and well, query with a particular wish by ID. So let's set those up. Here we have add update, which allows us to edit an entry inside of our table. So add update abstract fun, and here update a wish. And here I'm going to use wish entity wish again. Then we have the delete entry. So we also need to be able to delete item, delete a wish, which we also need to say which wish we want to delete. And then finally another query. I'm going to copy this thing here, add query, and now it's not going to get all wishes, but get a wish by ID. Now here we need to pass the ID that we want to load, and the ID is of type long. Okay, now it's not going to return a list of wishes, but it's going to return a singular wish, just one wish. And now we're not going to select all from the wish table, but we're going to select all from the wish table where, and here comes in a filter. So we're adding a filter where ID equals our ID. So this is just a way of us saying whatever ID we pass to get wishes by ID, and here is an S missing, that ID is going to be used to filter our list. So what this will do is it will still load all items from our wish table, but then it will filter everything out and will only take the one where our ID is the same ID as the one that we are passing to the get wishes by, or get wish by ID. I think we should call it get a wish by ID, because it's not getting multiple wishes, but just one. So it's just going to return one particular wish using flow again, which means it's going to happen asynchronously using our coroutines structure. So we need to make sure that we run it within a coroutine scope. Oh yeah, and then there is one last thing that we need to make sure that we add to our add a wish, update a wish, and delete a wish, and that is the suspend keyword, because they should be suspend functions here, and not the get all wishes, but the update a wish and delete a wish. All of those need to be suspend functions because they will happen in the background or in parallel, so to speak. So make sure to add the suspend keyword. We don't need to do that for our get a wish by ID as well as all or get all wishes, because it is already using flow, which is pretty much using the coroutine approach anyways.